Hello and welcome. My name is Thomas Kevin Dolan, the author and writer of my memoir, Little Fag, A Journey of Self-Acceptance and Healing. And today I will read to you from Section 5, Chapter 4, Building Blocks of Knowledge. It begins on page 320 of this memoir of mine. Hawaii taught me how to cooperate, not compete. Hawaii taught me to share, not hoard. Hawaii taught me about harmony, not discord. Hawaii taught me to revere life, not exploit it. Hawaii taught me to respond to life, not react to it. Hawaii taught me how to trust, not mistrust. Hawaii taught me how to walk awake, not asleep. Hawaii brought me joy. Hawaii brought me love, true love. For the first time in my life, I am awake, wholly awake, to my surroundings, to my life, to myself. What I braved. Giving myself permission to walk away from crazy was a profound healing moment in my life. Taking 3 years away from my family by choosing to be responsible for my healing was a highlight of my life. When challenged to define this concept of responsibility, all I could say to my therapist was, how I respond, not react, to what I create. That's responsibility to me. The answer felt simple, but I'll confess I knew nothing about responsibility growing up. No one around me took any. It was always somebody else's fault. I knew what a victim was, but not what a responsible person was. I'd come to learn that freedom from alcoholic insanity is a question of responsibility, personal responsibility. Additionally, I could not be responsible for something I did not create. Leaning into the lesson of me being the one that had to change, I first had to let go of the responsibility for the alcoholic insanity. It was always unmanageable, with or without me. Lesson 1. I had to see that I deserved a chance at a sane life, even though I had no idea what that would look like. I kept visualizing a light ahead of me and moving towards it, even when I couldn't see one. That was the inspiration for being away for 3 years. I got brave enough to see what this thing called life is about. I dropped the shame. I let go of the ways of being that no longer served me. I gave myself permission to step forward, even just a baby step at a time. I chose to put the insanity of my childhood into perspective and use the memories to heal myself. I also chose to leave the majority of them in the past so I could be free. I had lived the epitome of being stuck. Yet, with the choice of spending one of the years out of the 3 living on Maui, away from my family, I was able to embrace that life happened for me, not to me. By stepping away from the caustic energy of my family with no chance of being sucked back into the insanity, I enabled myself to start to make better choices and learn to walk away from crazy. What I braved was being able to focus and practice emotional sobriety and let go of attempting to change other people and things. I became, and still remain, centered in my peacefulness. When I returned to my family after 3 years, I took the time to explain to a few of my siblings how I'd grown. Surprised, they looked at me and said, "Mom told us that you went to Maui to die of AIDS." In that instance, I realized that crazy would never leave. Thank God I walked away from it. The unlearning. With his surgical light blaring right into my eyes and the magnifying glass pressed up against my nose, my dermatologist declared, "We're going to need the big guns for this." Melanoma is the most aggressive type of skin cancer and the type most likely to be fatal. This was the news I received in September 2009, and 2 weeks after the big guns verdict, I was booked for surgery on March 23rd, 2010. Some part of me, no doubt a denied part, thought I was better than the rest of the population that had melanoma, and I couldn't do the whole cancer is going to kill me thing, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't. Having 6 months to prepare for the surgery helped, but it was under so much fear. Considering the length of time from diagnosis to surgery for a potentially fatal cancer, wouldn't anyone want to move the date up a bit? As it turned out, no one did. And I ended up with a perfect amount of time to be with this. I had this memory of saying, albeit very politely, no, thank you, to an offer of extra SPF for my nose while living on the island in 1994. It's not that I now think the sun is my friend. It's just that I see how I ignored my inner wisdom when it came to extra protection for my skin. Right? The sun is my friend. It's not my enemy because of the damage I allowed it to wreak on my nose. As I did my work relative to living or dying with cancer, I also opened myself up to the clarity this voice of inner wisdom was constantly providing. I chose to befriend it and become an intent listener to this voice of truth, my truth. With some support in place for myself post-surgery, I remember something I did during meditation on the morning of my scheduled surgery process and procedure. I followed a whisper within to form these words: I intend to be free of cancer before I return home today. With a yummy lunch all packed, clean underwear, and a cheery disposition, off to day surgery I went. I was welcomed into the surgical suite by a bright-eyed nurse and 2 very capable plastic surgeons. These must be the big guns, I thought. With a deep breath and an open mind, I listened to all the details of what they were about to do. Before silently laughing, an image of Pinocchio. My nose was completely frozen. It's always strange to be awake for such an invasive procedure like surgery, but here I was, and it all seemed to be going well. In no time, the younger of the 2 plastic surgeons shared that he thought he'd gotten all, but would send a tissue sample out for testing. I was told they'd taken a bit of a bigger swipe of my nose so they could test the surrounding cells for any other melanoma. That actually made good sense to me. After about an hour of waiting, the surgeon announced they had to go back in to take a little more because the surrounding cells were not clear of melanoma. Are you okay with that? He asked. My thought was, would and who would say no? So off we went for round 2. Being somewhat familiar with the drill now, the second round seemed quicker. Post-surgery the second time, packed with gauze, I reclined in the patient's lounge to enjoy my organic lunch while the next swipe of me went off for testing. I must say, dining with other day surgery patients does little to whet the appetite. Invited back into the surgical suite, the surgical assistant appeared. This doesn't feel good to me, I thought. He shared that they needed to go in a 3rd time. I giggled nervously and asked, why is the lead surgeon not telling me this news? Does he think I'll be angry at him? The assistant quickly replied, you'd be amazed at the number of people who blame us for the additional surgery we sometimes have to do. I quickly thought, who'd be silly to get pissed off at their surgeon, especially while they're doing surgery? It's like pissing off your server in a restaurant and potentially having them do something nasty to your food. With that, I asked him to grab the lead surgeon. Here's what I shared with my surgical team. I am 100% responsible for this cancer. I'm not completely sure how I created it, but it's mine. I made an intention this morning that I'd leave this cancer free. I'd leave this surgical suite cancer free. So please do what you need to do. The team looked a little stunned. The nurse held onto my hand and gave it a little squeeze. I interpreted the squeeze as her sending me love. After a 3rd procedure, and with a green light from the investigative melanoma police, I was treated for some reconstructive work on my nose. I was proud to take full responsibility. With 3 surgical procedures all done, I was now offered several options or techniques to close the gash. Of course, I chose the least invasive and quickest one to heal, The unlearning for me, as I recall the experience and share it from here, is that I chose to be responsible for the cancer. I blame no one. I didn't choose a victim mentality. My nose is completely healed. The cancer never returned. In the course of my healing and subsequent follow-up visits, my plastic surgeons marveled at my healing. They asked, how did I do it? I smirked and said, I chose to start at the end with my intention to be cancer-free. Although I giggle and giggled through it, particularly with some of the things I said, I don't want you to think for a moment that it wasn't terrifying. It was terrifying. But here's what allowed me to have the fear as opposed to the fear having me. It was this notion of being 100% responsible for the circumstance. Nobody did it to me. And in a sense, I didn't do it to me. Oh, sure, I was completely ignorant. Well, I laid on the beach in Maui for a year with maybe SPF 15, certainly saying no to extra SPF for my nose. Huh. And I'll find compassion and some empathy for that part of me that wasn't being the brightest crayon in the box. But I'm really proud. I'm really proud of having done the work, of going to the first dermatologist who said we need the big guns for this. And then ultimately, I guess like my husband said, here was another example of an intention to be cancer-free, and I was back in action. Being able to connect with these two surgeons, the amazing assistant they had, but taking responsibility, regardless of the fear sitting there. And remember, regardless of actually taking and turning, right, this malady called cancer and this surgery and throwing it out to the world like my mother did, so that I would actually receive love for being unwell. I didn't do that, which is really cool. Really, really cool. The dear friend that came to pick me up after the surgery, I remember him being just so gracious and so gentle and so caring and so loving. And also saying to me at that time, you're being so brave. And I would say to him, thank you for that acknowledgement. And can I tell you, it was really scary for me. Really scary for me. And we both took a breath like I am now. And he said, I acknowledge your ability to hold a fear and be brave at the same time. Susan David, the psychologist that I follow, says that's one of the most profound bits of maturity we can create for ourselves. Being able to hold kind of that spectrum, right? The light of brave and the dark of being scared, and still be able to move forward. So I'm proud of the trek. I'm proud of the journey. I'm proud of my partners in healing. I'm proud to again have called on intention to support me. And mostly I'm proud to have come out the other end, this beautiful nose, knowing that, of course, the moment I declared the intention to be cancer-free, I walked towards cancer-free walked towards me, and of course the rest is blissful, healed history.